We have another update on a story that we've been following very closely. I'm talking about the cashless tolling problems we've seen here. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to speak with a Journal News reporter who has been digging into the company doing the collecting that in order to figure out what is actually going on here. But first, we wanted to put a human face on this by telling you some of the horror stories. The most shocking story is what happened to a one Dolores Ritchie and her family. Now, this was taken at 2 in the morning on Thanksgiving. That as police removed Ritchie's elderly mother, 79 years of age, from the car because of a suspended registration. The entire family left stranded on the corner of a Bronx street many miles from home. Now, it all happened because Ritchie says she was paying the tolls but wasn't getting credit for it, and a collections agency said she owed $12 grand. Here she is describing the ordeal.
I don't have Easy Pass. They mail you the bill. Now, they mail you the bill 2 months to 3 months later, but by the time you get that bill, they already took that $5 and charged you $100.
And if you think Ritchie is alone, you'd be wrong. Ashley Delgado, she says the Thruway Authority told her that she owed $3,500 in fines. Her registration also suspended as a consequence. Her car impounded, all because of tolls and all because of bills she says she didn't receive in time.
I was, again, just really confused because I never got the bill. There is no card for me to swipe. There are no parents for me to call and borrow the money so that I can settle it before it gets worse.
And there's more. The woman on your screen, Janet Berg, she says she had to tap into her IRA in order to pay a $5,000 bill for tolls and fines. Berg also says it was either pay the fines or have her registration suspended. And we also spoke with Lisa Buckley. She says that she always paid on time by mail, but the payments, they weren't processed. That caused fines, late fees, and she was told that because they added so many bridges to the cashless program, they couldn't keep up. Now, the Journal News and Fox One's Raimundi, they've been following this story for months now. And Ray, he's got the latest on the company in charge of collecting the money that's owed.
The new technology at the toll gantry snaps millions of photos within seconds. It captures your license plate, even photos of you driving. So who's behind the lens? And how is the technology affecting how much you pay when crossing a toll bridge or roadway?
Trying to figure out what's causing these billing errors and, causing these horror stories of people being, taken out of their cars and their cars being impounded. These redactions.
Journal News data journalist Frank Esposito obtained the contract between the Thruway Authority and Conduent.
We're one of the largest business process companies in the world.
The company responsible for managing cashless tolls and the toll-by-mail program. Esposito's hope to get to the bottom of how fines and penalties are issued and the protocols and procedures for billing and mailing.
Right now, we're not certain that the system's working, or at least what parts of the system could be causing problems. And this is a public contract.
The contract you see here was signed in 2007 and is more than 1,500 pages, 500 of which have been partially or completely redacted.
I realize that certain companies would want to keep their proprietary technology secret, but those could be redacted out in indexes and things like that, not just entire processes.
Those processes redacted completely from the contract include details on transaction processing, toll evasion processing, performance standards, and most importantly, the mail processing functions, all items that may shed some light on what caused these 4 people and dozens of others to owe tens of thousands of dollars in fines.
It's troubling to see the contract being redacted.
State Senator David Carlucci viewing the redacted contract.
I think they need to step it up. I think that the system we see is flawed. They have to do a better job on customer service, a better job on collecting outstanding fees.
Conduent controls the contracts for 7 of the top 10 transportation agencies around the country, including the New York State Thruway, which controls the Mario Cuomo Bridge. Records indicate that the company has collected close to $8 billion across those transportation agencies. In fact, Fios One News has learned just how much the Thruway Authority is paying Conduit. They signed a 10-year agreement, well over $202 million, or just over $20 million per year for its services.
Those numbers are staggering, the amount of money being collected in these systems, the amount of money changing hands.
We're the largest electronic toll service provider in the country, processing 1.6 billion tolls a year. And that can make your trip easier.
While Conduit prides itself in customer service and making trips easy, many commuters here in our area say it's been the exact opposite. As drivers yearn for a solution, they wonder whether cashless tolling will ever be easy. Raimundi, Fios One News.
And on Aloha.com, as we speak, you can see all these personal stories. The new piece investigating the company behind the tolls, and that Conduit story will also be in the Journal News this Sunday. Now, in Ray's piece, you saw Journal News data reporter Frank Esposito dig deeper into the company behind this, and we bring in Frank now. And to that end, nobody should be shocked we have problems right now. If they bother to look at other states that there's cashless tolling, in Texas and other places, as you guys have found out, these problems have been systemic. I mean, again, I want to beat to death for a second. Those people that you guys profiled and we showed, they're not scofflaws. They were trying to do the right thing. The system's so screwed up right now, and the backlog and how these things are getting worse. They're trying to pay their bills. They're not getting them, and they're paying a consequence. My point is it fair to say the state should have known better that they were going to run into these problems?
From the earliest reports with cashless tolling, so 2007, when it's just rolling out in Texas, they're noticing problems with billing. They're self-reporting these problems. It's difficult to track down using DMV records, which really aren't supposed to be the most accurate. It was a problem, and they said that without engaging more users into using their version of EasyPass text tag, that it would be difficult to run around. It would be difficult to collect all that data. So yeah, any due diligence work would have shown that this project, at least from the 2016 re-up for the contract, that you would have needed to see that there were problems, and how are you going to address these problems systemically from California to Texas and into Florida as well. So
how did the states settle on Conduit, and how did they get the contract?
Well, so it's actually an interesting story because originally the contract and a lot of the originally the contract was signed with a company called Affiliated Computer Services, which was then bought out by Xerox Image Processing, which then spun that off from its document business into Conduit. So really it was a series of corporate maneuvers that created Conduit in that largest frame, where they were buying out contracts that other companies had. So that's how it was created in that sense.
We're talking a lot of money here, Frank. I mean, that's one of the things I got from your reporting. I was surprised how much we're talking about here, and also, you know, duration of the contract and everything else. Were you surprised by some of the numbers?
Yes, I was. That much money over a long period of time, and most economists will say that you really shouldn't be doing a lot of predicting out past 10 years for inflation, because that's too difficult to predict. So knowing that the system's going to cost this much 5 years, especially when you're using technology, you know, what technological advances could happen to, you know, make this thing cheaper, that you'd be paying more for it then. It's also been extended in 3 years too now.
Exactly. I wanted you to speak to that here, because it's certainly not like they've knocked it out of the park with performance, but yet they get a 3-year extension.
Yeah, so we've currently submitted requests to the Thruway for any penalties that have been applied to Conduit for failing to meet consumer standards. So we don't know how systemic those problems have been, but we're hoping to figure that out.
Well, and you've lived this, so I'm just asking the question as just an angry resident of the state. We're talking public transportation. By definition, this is the public's business. How our tax dollars are being spent, what we're getting for it, and if we have problems like we're seeing with the people that have been profiled here, how the remedies will work. I cannot believe the lack of transparency, the redactions that you have to go through to find out the basic information. I know as a job you dig into these things here, but this isn't some separate private company that has no business before the state. This is taxpayer dollars paying these guys here. How come it's so hard to get the basic facts that you're looking for?
They're using a provision of this public information law that allows them to keep what they consider trade secrets from the public. Now, if you are not someone who's got some technical sophistication going through this contract, and you're being asked as a lawyer to say, okay, what's a trade secret or not, and what's really you have to, something you have to keep from public view. This is that it's difficult in that sense too, because without knowing how mailhouse processing would work, how much of that should be secret or not is difficult to know.
And you frankly aren't looking for the trade secrets. You're looking for some basic information about how, in effect, this arrangement's working, or more specifically, not working, right?
Yeah, just some hierarchies of who's involved. Names are redacted, the years they've been at the company have been redacted, things like that, which really wouldn't be a trade secret as to your employees' record at your company. Those things should have been public, I think.
Not blowing sunshine here. You guys at the paper have done a phenomenal job. You're also talking about and remind people where they can go for the amnesty program, et cetera. Where does this go from here? Has Albany gotten the memo that they got a big problem, they got to fix this?
I think that our coverage and your coverage as well has shown that this needs to be looked at more closely, and that as the amnesty program will end on Monday, that new processes have to be put into place to deal with these things. I mean, it's impossible to get a system this large to be working at 100%. It's not going to happen. Computers are fallible things sometimes. So,
well, we're not close to 100%, right? I mean, the amount of people I know that have open questions that have just come up to me about this story that you guys broke, I can't tell you how many people said, what happens? I get bills in the mail. Could my license be suspended? Could my registration be suspended? What could I be dealing with? It is still not resolved. And my question is Monday the right day to pull the plug on the amnesty program, or do you think they ought to extend it?
Whereas amnesty, just for the people that they've created a backlog for, may need to take a different approach. I think that trying to engage in something like Washington State does with their cashless tolling system is that if you have a problem, you can call them up and you get a mulligan, basically. And as long as you update your information with Washington State, they'll let you go with just paying the tolls.
I'm feeling this story is not near over. Frank, great job. Thank you, as always. Staying in New York, when we come back, we're going to check in with the Percoco trial out of the federal court in Manhattan. Prosecution's rested. Now the defense trying to pick apart its case against the former top Cuomo aide. Our own Dominic Carter at the courthouse. He'll join us coming up next with the very latest.